Okay, so ready to dive into another life.
Always.
This one, on the surface, you might think, ooh, ordinary guy. But trust me, there's layers here, like an onion. We're looking at Leon Maiolo.
Okay.
Born 1921, lived almost the whole 20th century. Quarry worker, army reservist, craftsman. But those are just labels, right?
Right.
What we're going to uncover is the man. Behind those labels, what kind of world did he live in? And how that world shaped him.
Mm-hmm.
We've got his son's firsthand account, family photos, even details about his cars. You know I love those little details.
Oh, yeah. They bring to life.
Totally. And it all starts in Watertown, New York, right? On Water Street.
Okay, so northeast?
Right on the Black River. His son describes him as a kid swimming against the current. I love that. Almost like a metaphor, right? For the grit he showed later.
Oh, that's a great image, yeah. Speaks to resilience, probably instilled early on. His dad was a World War I vet, so there's that sense of duty, strength passed down. And let's not forget that quarry, looming large, becomes a huge part of his life later.
Yeah, it's like this constant in the background, almost foreshadowing. But it wasn't all hard work and looming quarries, right? He was a wrestler in high school.
Oh, right.
Always saying wrestling, that thick New York accent. Summers, hanging on his uncle's farm. Building those muscles, that work ethic from a young age.
So we're seeing those themes emerge early. You got to remember the context. Early 20th century America, especially industrial towns.
Right.
Physical strength, practical skills, strong work ethic, essential to being a man, contributing to society. It's
Right.
almost like Leon was being prepared.
For the life that was coming.
Exactly.
And then boom,
Yeah.
World War II.
Yeah.
Changes everything. He's 22, drafted, assigned to the 14th Armored Division, shipped off to France. Can you imagine that impact, this young man from Watertown?
Pivotal moment. And he doesn't just survive, he thrives. Becomes a tank commander. Think of that responsibility, the pressure.
Wow.
Earns a Bronze Star and a Purple Heart. Those medals tell a story.
Oh, that Bronze Star story is nuts. His platoon's pinned down, heavy fire. He spots an abandoned tank destroyer. And what does he do?
What?
Charges toward it, alone, under enemy fire, hoping to use it to save his men.
Incredible. It's that calculated bravery, right? Runs through his whole life. The tank wouldn't start, but he used it as cover, drew fire away from his platoon. They repositioned, minimized casualties, quick thinking under pressure.
Amazing. It's almost chilling, though, when you contrast that with his near-death experience with the booby trap.
Oh, right.
He's in the top hatch of his tank, and suddenly, this wire, meant to decapitate him, whips past his face.
Oh, my gosh.
He yelled just in time for the driver to stop, but not before the wire ripped out all his teeth.
Wow. That detail. It's so visceral. Brutal. Makes you wonder about the unseen scars, the psychological impact. So many veterans carry that silently.
And Leon, of course, no exception. Comes home to Watertown, a changed man. Starts working, you guessed it,
The quarry.
the quarry. It becomes this defining element of his life for decades.
Full circle, huh? That thing that loomed over his childhood,
Yeah.
now his workplace, his livelihood. And this is post-war boom, remember. Blue-collar jobs, backbone of America. That pride in providing for your family through hard work.
Absolutely. His son's descriptions of the quarry are so vivid. Driving up those steep, narrow roads, everything coated in white dust from the crushed stone.
I can almost picture it.
That's like another world.
Yeah.
But within that chaos, Leon, he has this meticulous routine.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Same black metal lunch pail.
Right.
Cold meat sandwich, Campbell's soup.
Yeah.
Every single day.
Speaks to that need for order, maybe, amidst the chaos.
Right.
And maybe it reflects that generation, too, finding contentment in simplicity.
But he wasn't just a cog in the machine. When they needed a welder at the quarry, Leon steps up.
Yeah.
Goes all the way to Ohio for training.
Wow.
He wasn't afraid to adapt, learn new skills.
That's crucial, right? Shows his commitment to
Right.
self-improvement, to being valuable, to taking pride in his work.
Right, it wasn't just a job.
A way of life.
And Leon wanted to be good at it.
Mhm.
So we have this image. Leon, the stoic quarry worker, the war hero. But here's where things get interesting. We start to see the other sides of this man, the contrasts that make him so fascinating.
Right, like peeling back the layers, like we said. There's more to him than meets the eye.
Oh, yeah.
We're about to discover that this hard-working, quiet man also had a playful side, a creative spark. Makes you wonder how those different parts of him coexisted, shaped his life.
Hold on to your hats, folks.
Yeah.
Leon Maiolo is full of surprises. So we've got Leon, stoic quarry worker by day. But after he clocks out, different story. Remember that peanut butter jar? full of change.
Yeah, yeah.
That wasn't for snacks.
No.
That was his poker fund. He'd head over to the Northside Improvement League, play cards with his buddies, a little competitive streak we haven't seen yet.
Uh-huh.
And don't forget his bowling league. Trophies for his high scores.
Really?
It's amazing, right?
Yeah.
These little details add so much depth. He's not just one-dimensional.
No, absolutely.
And then there's the woodworking. He built corner cabinets for their house. Copied a design from an Ethan Allen magazine just by looking at a picture.
Wow.
And built his own back porch from scratch.
That's skill.
Where did that meticulousness come from?
It's like, it challenges those assumptions we have, about men of that generation. Leisure wasn't just escaping work. It was about expressing skill, creativity, taking pride in what you could create.
Right.
Tells us how Leon found meaning, purpose, beyond the job, even if he didn't say it out loud.
He wasn't a man of many words, that's for sure. Especially when it came to his family.
Right.
But we get these glimpses, right, into his family life, and they're so revealing. He and Ruth, his wife, they had this nightly ritual. He'd watch Westerns, war movies, she'd read in the next room.
It's a window into relationships back then. Maybe not as outwardly affectionate as we see today, but there's a shared comfort in that routine, right? Being together, even when doing separate things. And the war movies, especially World War II, suggests he was still processing those experiences.
Finding solace, maybe? Yeah. It makes you think about how we all deal with our past, the ways we try to make sense of it.
Yeah.
And then there's this lovely image of them on summer evenings, sitting in their aluminum chairs on their Leary Street porch.
Oh, I love that.
Neighbors would join them, talking about the news. The Vietnam War was a big topic at the time.
Right.
It's a picture of community, right? A time when people connected, face to face, shared their lives, their concerns. So different from today.
It really is.
And it's in those small moments we see Leon as a father. He'd take his youngest son, Leon Jr., for milkshakes, fishing trips, simple acts of love, connection.
Exactly. It was a generation where fathers expressed affection through actions, not so much words. Being present, sharing those everyday experiences.
But even Leon's fatherhood had those contrasts, those surprises. Remember his oldest son, Tim? Bitter pool shark, hustling games in a hidden pool hall, behind a barbershop.
Oh, no way.
Their mom found like 20 parking tickets stuffed in the sun visor.
That's great.
It's hilarious. And it speaks to a changing social landscape, right? The emergence of youth culture, a little rebellion. Tim's pool hustling, it represents a different path, one that Leon probably couldn't have imagined for himself.
Right.
And speaking of paths, let's talk about Leon's cars. Because they weren't just vehicles, they were markers of his journey.
Oh, I like that. Okay.
Yeah, from that practical 54 Ford Crestline to a black Studebaker, then a light blue Chevy Chevette. Each one representing a different stage, different needs.
Cars in post-war America, they were more than just transportation.
Right.
Symbols of aspiration, status, freedom, mobility. For someone like Leon, it was also about providing for his family. And each one probably holds a story, a memory.
Oh, totally. And the one that really stands out, his maroon '69 Chevy Malibu became the family car used for everything, work commutes, hauling supplies for his woodworking. It even had that dent, remember, on the left front fender. From when he accidentally hit a pole, his wife never let him forget it.
Oh, I love that.
Those little imperfections, right? They make it real.
Relatable.
It's like we can picture that Malibu, the Maiolo family piling in for a Sunday drive.
Yeah.
But then, a dark turn. 1980. Ruth and their daughter-in-law are in the Malibu, and they get hit from behind by a drunk driver.
Oh, no.
The car's totaled, and Ruth suffers lasting back pain.
It's that reminder, isn't it, of how fragile life is. Even in a life built on routine, stability, sudden events can have profound consequences.
Yeah.
And again, we see Leon's steadfastness. He adapts, supports his family through this hardship, doesn't crumble.
Bodies that quiet strength, right? So now we have Leon entering retirement. Worked hard his whole life, survived a war, raised a family, found joy in his hobbies, weathered life's storms.
Yeah.
How does a man like that approach this new chapter?
That's a great question. For someone who's defined himself by work for so long, retirement can feel like a loss of identity, almost.
Right.
But it seems like Leon approached it with that same sense of purpose.
Yeah.
Routine.
It wasn't about slowing down.
No.
It was about shifting his energy, his focus. And one of the most telling examples of that, the cottage.
The cottage.
Yeah, the one he and Ruth bought on Lake Ontario back in '72.
Okay, yeah.
This wasn't just a vacation home. It was a symbol of that post-war prosperity, the growing middle class, enjoying leisure time, and the fact that they got it for like $4,000 back then.
Wow.
Hard to imagine that today.
Yeah.
And that $4,000 cottage, it became a touchstone for their family
Yeah.
for decades. Even though they never actually slept overnight at the cottage, Ruth preferred her own bed.
Oh, really?
Leon would be out there almost every day during the summer, though.
It shows how people find comfort, right? Routine in different ways. And also that retirement, it's not about idleness. It's about redirecting your energy towards things that bring you joy, accomplishment.
Exactly. So we have Leon, former quarry worker, transformed into lake-loving retiree, fishing for bass in his aluminum rowboat, tending to his garden, enjoying the peace and quiet. Quite the contrast.
That's contrast, but not a complete departure, right, from his character. He still had that practicality. Became a devoted buyer of Ford Escort station wagons.
Right.
Reliable, spacious, perfect for hauling supplies. He'd even pass his old ones down to his son.
It's almost like the Ford Escort becomes a symbol of their relationship. Leon continuing to provide care for his family, even in retirement. It wasn't extravagant, but it was practical, reliable, just like him.
Exactly. And it reinforces the fact that this wasn't a retirement filled with, cruises or fancy vacations. It was about those simple pleasures, practicality, maintaining those connections that mattered most.
And those connections extended beyond family, too. They started taking these long walks together into downtown Watertown, something they never did before.
Interesting. How retirement can open up new routines, new ways of experiencing the familiar. Those walks became their way of staying active, enjoying each other's company, remaining connected to their community.
It wasn't about escaping.
Right.
It was about engaging with life in a different way. They weren't completely tied to Watertown, though. They developed a bit of a snowbird routine, spending winters in Florida with their son Tim, escaping those harsh New York winters.
Yes.
But summers,
Yeah.
always about the cottage. That was their sanctuary.
It speaks to the flexibility, the possibilities that retirement can offer, right? Travel, spending time with family in different locations, experiencing new things. A chance for Leon to broaden his world in ways that his working life maybe didn't allow.
And let's not forget about his lifelong passion, hunting.
Oh, right.
He'd go on these trips to the Adirondacks with his brother-in-law, Bill, staying at this rustic hunting camp on Cranberry Lake.
Sounds amazing.
It wasn't always a solitary pursuit either. His son remembers going up there with his mom and cousins, playing in the woods while the men prepared. It was a family affair, passing down traditions, creating memories.
Yeah.
And after Bill passed away, Leon kept hunting, but alone. He'd often go to Camp Drum, immersing himself in the solitude, the challenge. Makes you wonder, what those solo trips meant to him, what thoughts he was wrestling with out there.
It's poignant, right? Continuing that passion, but now with the sense of loss. Hunting was more than just a hobby for him. It was a way to connect with something deeper, something essential.
But even the strongest among us eventually face limitations. In his late 70s, Leon starts showing signs of Alzheimer's.
Oh.
It's that reminder that time takes its toll on everyone, even someone as strong as Leon.
It's a difficult reality, especially for someone who's always been independent, self-reliant. But even in decline, Leon's story shows the depth of his family's love, support.
His decline was gradual, but eventually he needed full-time care, moved to a nursing facility in Florida to be closer to his son Tim. Bittersweet, but it shows the commitment of his family, being there for him, even as his world shrank. His memories faded.
Testament to the strength of those bonds, those ties that bind us through thick and thin.
And it reminds us that even in the face of hardship, loss, there can be beauty in how we care for one another. Leon passed away in 2004, surrounded by loved ones. The end of an era, a life well lived. It's like closing the final chapter of the book,
Yeah.
But the story stays with you. Long after you finish reading, it really makes you think, Leon's story.
It does.
We've gone from his childhood on the Black River to World War II, the quarry, his family, his passions, and ultimately his decline. It's a journey, almost a whole century.
It's remarkable, especially when you think Leon was in many ways an ordinary man.
Right.
Not a celebrity, a politician.
Yeah.
He was a working class guy who lived through extraordinary times.
But his life touches on those universal themes,
Yep.
right? What it meant to be a man in America, the role of hard work, how it shapes you, finding purpose in work and leisure, how those big events, history, play out in the lives of everyday people.
Exactly. And that's what makes this so compelling, right? We have these personal details, the anecdotes, family stories that bring it to life. It's not just abstract concepts. We're seeing how they played out in Leon's life, his relationships, his day-to-day experiences.
Yeah, it's like we've got this time machine and we're stepping into his world, seeing the 20th century through his eyes. And what can we learn from that? For me, one of the biggest things is resilience, the resilience of the human spirit. He faced so much. War, personal loss, economic shifts, and then his own declining health.
But he never gave up.
He didn't.
Didn't wallow, didn't complain. He adapted, persevered, found joy in the things he could control. His work, his family, his hobbies. It's that quiet strength, that determination to keep moving forward, even when life throws you curveballs.
It makes you think about what really matters. It's not about fame or fortune having this perfect life. It's about finding meaning in the everyday, in the routines, the rituals that give our lives structure, purpose. For Leon, it was the rhythm of the quarry, the comfort of home,
Yeah.
building something with his own hand.
And connection, don't forget connection.
Right.
Connection to family, to community, to something larger than ourselves. Leon's life, it was so intertwined with the people around him, his wife, his kids, his friends, the guys he worked with. Even those solitary things like hunting, woodworking, they were often connected to shared experiences, traditions.
Like those connections were the threads that held it all together, the tapestry of his life. So we have this picture, this man who was a war hero, a quarry worker, a craftsman, a husband, a father, a friend, a man of contradiction, sure.
Yeah.
But also a man who lived his life with integrity, quiet strength.
And it prompts us to ask ourselves, what do we find meaning in? How do we face challenges, change? What kind of legacy do we want to leave?
Those are big questions.
They are.
And I don't think there's easy answers. But Leon's life gives us that framework.
Right.
For thinking about them, examining our own values, our priorities.
Absolutely. Because in the end, Leon's story, it's not just about him.
Right.
It's about what it reflects back to us, about our lives and the choices we make.
So I'm curious, what stands out to you about Leon's life? What resonates? What question would you ask him if you could? Those are questions worth pondering. Because as we've seen, the life of a seemingly ordinary man can hold extraordinary lessons for us all.
It reminds us that history, it's not just dates, events. It's about the individual lives, the fabric of our shared experience. And sometimes those individual stories, they illuminate the most profound truths about who we are, what it means to live a meaningful life.